And if you want change in your life, you've got to change. It's as simple as that. So if you don't like something going on, then what are you going to change to create a different result? You've got to change your action if you want a different result. If I didn't like it, if it was negatively affecting me, I had control to change it. And at that point, nobody controlled my life anymore.
What is up, friends? Rob Sevilla here, and I'm back with a brand new Spitting Fire Leadership podcast for all of you today. And I'm with someone from my hometown, Tupelo, Mississippi, Mr. Chris Garrison. Chris, will you say what's up to everyone real quickly?
Hey, everybody. Man, Rob, appreciate you having me on. Super excited about it. I see your hustle over there, and glad and honored to be on the show and hopefully share something that inspires someone to increase their hustle so they have plenty to give out to others.
Absolutely. And I know you're going to spit some serious fire, my friend. But before we dive into that, I want to remind all of you that are either watching or listening that we do this because we live by a mantra. I live by a mantra that says I was created on purpose, for a purpose. And I can't think of any better year than to start living on purpose than 2022. And I know something that Chris and I are going to talk about is going to divinely inspire you to be the leader that I believe is inside all of you. And so, Chris, once again, man, thanks for being on. I always ask everybody this as we get started. Will you give us that 30,000 foot view of your story? Maybe a little bit of the past, some of that transition time up to what you're currently doing today.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to start where I'm at right now, because it's going to really set in stone where I came from.
Sure.
And that 30,000 foot view really looks like I've got a 7-figure disaster cleaning company that I started from scratch 5 years ago with a $500 amount of money and sitting in my bank account, made that investment and just hustled it all the way to 7 figures and still jumping over hurdles to grow it even more. The goal is to add a few more million to that gross revenue in the next few years. And then I also have a coaching mentor program. All of the content is free. And I really just try to give back because I found myself at such a low place in my 20s. And I realized with just some strategic movement each and every day and staying consistent, you can really pull yourself out of any space and you can do practically anything that you want to do. I've also gotten involved in real estate, and I've built a single family, mainly portfolio of real estate. We're around about 60 units at this point. And that is really where I'm trying to build my wealth and retirement plan. And I'm currently partnered up and really trying to educate myself to be a business acquisition master, because I've learned that cash flow really does solve most problems. When you've got money, you don't feel restricted, you don't have fear. And money just allows you to buy opportunity. And it also allows you to help others and bring opportunity into others' lives. So backing up to where I was, now that you know where I'm currently at, in my 20s, I got married at 20. 3 months later, my wife had gotten pregnant. And then only a couple of years later, we had our second child as well. On the second child, we thought that was actually going to help our marriage. And that shows you how naive we were as kids. All it did was put more pressure on us financially. I literally was making choices that kept me from working 40 hours a week, kept me from hustling and doing what I knew I was supposed to do to provide for my family. So for 10 years there, from 20 to 30, I was in this marriage, trying to be a good father, but really not being a great father because I was mentally broke and spiritually feeling broke. And I was to the point to where I was fairly depressed, riding down the highway one day and thought if I close my eyes and jerk my wheel and head towards this pillar holding this bridge up, I wouldn't have to wake up 7 days a week feeling heavy like I did.
Yeah.
I would literally sit on the edge of the bed and it felt like a ton of weights on my shoulders just trying to get up in the morning and go to work when I did go to work. It wasn't a W-2 job. I worked for friends and family, tried to hustle my own thing with a pressure washer in the back of a truck, detailing cars, and then worked for my father as a maintenance guy on his real estate. So, I mean, I got a lot of exposure, learned a lot of good skills by trying multiple things, but just never could get anything to stick. And what it boils down to is the choices I was making. And that's what brought me to age 30. I got so disgusted with my life. 5 days out of the 7 was not a good day. 2 days out of the week, I would feel like I could actually take in a breath of fresh air and some sunshine was coming into my life. And that's a very depressive way to live when you don't enjoy the majority of your week. And there's a lot of people out there like that. And so when I plugged into the correct influences and got the stuff that was weighting me down out of my life, I began to see everything in my life change for the better. So at age 30, I looked at my wife at the time and said, I have nothing else to give. And she said the exact same thing. So we decided to go ahead and part ways and get a divorce. And they moved about an hour and a half away to her family's neck of the woods. And I got partial custody and I saw my kids every other weekend. And I worked on myself and making some money during that period of time. But what changed my life is when I got on YouTube and I looked up motivational speeches. I grew up with a spiritual background. I was always in church, charismatic church, went to Pentecostal, to Baptist. My parents were, hey, if they're sharing the good news in a manner that is relatable, then it doesn't matter what denomination. So I always had that background. I was even in the traveling ministry from age 18 to 23, and we traveled around state to state and even held youth conferences locally for about 2,000 youth each month. That's where I met my first wife. She was the worship leader. But it just goes to show you, one lesson I learned there was don't be in such a rush to tie up and get married. Like there's no reason to rush that. If you enjoy each other, then enjoy each other and develop and find yourself. Because at 20, I thought I was mature, but I wasn't. And it really did take me a while to really discover and mature. And I realized that her vision for the future was different than my vision for the future. So after we called it quits, I was just really broke because for 10 years, I racked up loss after loss after loss. And when you go so many losses in a row, it will deplete your confidence. And that's what I felt like, a loser in every area. So I looked up motivational speeches on YouTube. I got a hold of Grant Cardone and I heard his story. He's a sales, he's I don't want to use the word guru, but he's a master at sales. He's huge into real estate. But that's not what I saw when I pulled up his video. It was talking about how he used to be a drug addict and how he just changed simple actions in his life that completely transformed him into this real estate tycoon that has over $1 billion worth of real estate, multiple businesses, and he's living the life that he wanted to live. And he was very much of a hard worker and had a heavy work ethic, where before he had not, because he allowed other things influence his life that were negatively affecting him instead of positively affecting him. So I heard this and it resonated with me, and I began to digest his content. Well, YouTube likes the algorithm and they pretty much see, oh, if you like this, you might like this. So then I got turned on to Jim Rohn, Ed Mylett, Les Brown, and all of these other motivational speakers. And it began to completely change my way of thinking and pull me out of this funk, this place of just feeling like a loser. And I would eat it in the morning and all throughout the day and then in the evening. And it took a while. I mean, Rob, this wasn't a quick transformation because I was so broke down. And I think so many people give up so prematurely and think this is just my life because I was dealt a bad hand of cards. And the reality is you can change anything in your life. And when my life began to change is when I heard Grant say, you need to take responsibility for everything in your life. And I thought about my failed marriage. And it wasn't that my wife complained about everything that I did, I can never please her. It was that I wasn't a man enough to say, this is what we need to do to make this happen. And I need you to allow me to do what I feel like I'm supposed to do to fulfill my agreement in this marriage and be able to get past that and not go into this depressive mode if she disagreed with me. Those types of situations and accepting responsibility is what completely changed my trajectory in life. But I would have never have heard that statement and accepted that statement if I hadn't have said, I got to do something different. And if you want change in your life, you've got to change. It's as simple as that. So if you don't like something going on, then what are you going to change to create a different result? You've got to change your action if you want a different result. So I accepted that responsibility of everything in my life. So I don't care what it was. If I didn't like it, if it was negatively affecting me, I had control to change it. And at that point, nobody controlled my life anymore. Nobody controlled my emotions. Nobody controlled my future. I was in complete control. It didn't matter if I worked for someone else. I controlled if I showed up to work. I controlled if I worked hard. I controlled if I stayed at that job or if I found a better opportunity. I controlled if I saw my kids and I was present while I was there. You have complete control of your life. And it is so easily to escape when you sit there and you make excuses because now you act like someone else has control. But what you did is you gave your freedom away when you do that. As soon as you start making excuses, you give your freedom away to someone else. And you say, take control of my situation, take control of this moment, my attitude. And so I just began to structure my days differently, Rob. I went to where I was listening to these guys that were obviously successful. I began to mimic what other successful people were doing. And I began to mimic their routines as well, because if it worked for them, it would probably work for me. So I'd get up in the morning and I would make myself get into an exercise mode. And all of the biological things that happen when you're exerting energy in the gym, whether you're in a gym membership or if you're at home just doing some air squats and push-ups and leg raises, it doesn't matter, getting the blood flowing began to put me in a productive mode. And I realized that if I could rack up little wins, these little small wins, first thing in the morning, it was setting me up for success throughout the day. And I put that into a routine. And so every day I would get up in the morning and I would either go to the gym, or if it was on the weekends, I might do some push-ups and some sit-ups just to get the blood flowing. And then I would also say affirmations out loud so that I could hear it, so that I would train my brain in understanding that as I train my brain, my action and response would mimic what I'm saying over time. So I still, to this day, wake up and say, I have a large network of high net worth individuals that can't wait to put their money, deploy their money with me and partner with me on opportunities, because everything that I touch prospers. I am a great father. I'm a great husband. We enjoy life and we live life to the fullest. I have so much in abundance that I affect everybody around me. And I just began to say this. And you know, if depending on what denomination you're from, you would say it was being prophetic. And I truly believe, you know, you want to get in the world, you call it affirmations. You want to get in the church, you call it being prophetic. And this, as I literally was telling a friend yesterday that last week, I've had two individuals come to me that one said, hey, I've got millions. He said, I have 10 million. I have 10 million that I just refinanced out. And he said, I need to deploy it if you have a deal. This is a guy that I've been building a relationship for the last 2 years just by seeing him at masterminds that I'm a part of. Then another guy I got to meet for the first time, and he's got a few million from the sale of some real estate and even more to come from the sale of a business. And he's here locally. And when I saw that guy here locally, it made me think of the other guy. And I thought, Chris, all of those affirmations, those prophetic statements you've been saying are coming to fruition. And the reason they're coming to fruition because I began to take action behind those statements. And I think that's where so many people get tripped up and miss the ship, because they say, if I say it, it will become. But the reality is you got to do something. Yeah. You can sit here and say it all day long, eating your Cheetos on the couch that you're going to be in shape. But until you get up and you start busting some weight out, you're not going to get in shape. Or until you start eating cleaner, you're not going to get in shape. And it's easy to say because the same endorphins get released when you listen to motivational stuff and you begin to say it as like, and start wishing and dreaming for it. The same endorphins happen there as it does when you actually achieve and put the action behind it. But which is easier? Just saying it. But which one produces results? The action. And so I chose to do the action, and it's really awesome to start seeing those efforts come into play in real life and just see it becoming real. So those little things and just my daily activities have changed everything in my life, and it has affected my business. It's allowed me to grow in business. It's allowed me to hopefully inspire others. That's why I started the Bigger Vision Facebook group, is just to give out, because I understood that it would have taken me a lot longer. And I don't know how long it would have taken me to even start the process if I had not got a hold of that free video that Grant put out about his story. And now that I'm in the thick of it, I get around these other influencers, and that's what they say. They say, tell your story. You don't have to build content. You don't have to write all these scripts. It's your life that people connect with. If you've got a dog, talk about your dog. And if you enjoy cooking out, if you enjoy going to church, whatever it is, just share your story. And when something, inspires you, share the inspiration. So what I try to do is I try to share something educational or inspirational. Those two things is what I always try to produce on my social media. And the reason I do that and try to do it very consistently is because it's branding me, and it also brands my companies.
Sure.
And it sets me up as an authority in the space. And I instantly have credibility with someone, because through video, you feel like you know someone if you've never even met them. And so I focus a lot at this point on my social media presence, because it's allowed me to grow my disaster cleanup company. It's allowed me to get deal flow on my real estate. It's allowed me to get private money brought to me, asking to partner with me, because they see I'm active in the space. They see me educating people about it, so they know I know my stuff. Right. And it's just an amazing platform that's available for everybody and anybody if they want to utilize it. And before I got involved, I thought, oh man, people are going to judge me. And I'll tell you what it did to me. It made me have to be able to justify every action I make, because I knew at some point I could possibly get judgment from what I say or do. So I needed to be able to justify it. And it made me build a level of character that I might have not had if I hadn't exposed myself and opened myself to the public for judgment like that.
No, I love that, man. You shared so much in that intro. And I mean, you took us to church, man, really. I mean, just put a lot of content in there. Want to go back and dissect a couple of things. One thing that I love that you said is we live in a world that doesn't want to take responsibility. And so one thing that I preach to a lot of people that I get to mentor, disciple, whatever word you want to use there, is that your blaming is blocking your breakthrough, which is ultimately blocking your blessing.
Absolutely.
And so I love that you said I had to own it. I was thinking I was a loser, and I could have sat there and dealt with this hand that I was dealt, but I chose to really break through. And it's interesting how many people think mindset is nothing more than just rah. I hear that a lot. Just, you're one of those mindset guys, Rob. You're just a rah. But it's interesting how you're just one piece of content away from probably the biggest breakthrough in your life. And that's really what you were saying.
Absolutely. So I was at an event a couple of months ago. It was an incredible event. I've hired him as a business coach. I'm in his mastermind, and to put into perspective, because I love kind of, and there's some people that may actually invest more in themselves than this, but most don't that I've come in contact with. So I pay $1,000 a month for 4 Zoom meetings to be in front of this guy. And he's got over 80 people in this group. So this dude's bringing in $80,000 a month. Wow. And he spends 4 hours online. A lot of times he goes over an hour, and he's got prep time, and he's got a private Facebook group that he posts in. He gives a ton of value away. But I went to a birthday bash that he had, is the reason I knew about it from being in this group up in Cleveland, Ohio. And he had a guy that had an HVAC service company, sold it for $32 million. Wow. Okay. Massive. This guy is just spectacular. Now he's got a coaching program where he invests in other entrepreneurs to help scale their businesses.
Sure.
And his statement when he was on stage, he said, you've got to 20x yourself if you want to 10x your business. And I agree 100% with that, because we will never pass ourselves in our own mindset and skill set. So we have got to keep that mindset of abundance. And the only way to do that is to constantly invest in yourself. The very best investment you can ever make in the highest ROI that is going to be the toughest to track is going to be in yourself. Right. So this year alone, I have spent over $75,000 on self-development. That's going to events, that's being in masterminds, that's buying courses. And it's not like I bought a course for everything. It's been real niched. It's business, real estate, and personal branding. Sure. Those are the three areas in my life that I am focused on and growing, because I realize the more eyeballs I have, the more opportunity I have. I had a buddy that said eyeballs is currency.
Sure.
And if I know a broad view and then some real detailed skill sets in business and investing, mainly in real estate, then I will be able to take those opportunities from the eyeballs and plug them in and build teams so that everybody can benefit, including myself. And I can't impress enough. Start out free. If you don't have money, start out free. But if I had $10,000, or if someone came to me and said, I've only got $10,000, what do I invest in? I'm going to say yourself. Find someone that you know is doing what they're teaching, and then get plugged into them and begin to mimic everything that they do, because what they're doing has got them successful. Sure. And if you want to be successful, you study the successful, not the ones that just have programs of coaching that aren't actually being active in it.
Yeah.
They were active 20 years ago. A lot of stuff has changed. Find somebody that's doing it and not making a living off the coaching, and then mimic everything they've got.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying, because, one of the things that we like to teach is that the content that we consume the most is what we become the most like. Yes. And you change the content that you were putting in. Right? We want a different output, but a lot of us aren't changing the input. Right. It's what we're putting into ourselves. And you begin to change the input. And this, we ultimately attract who we are. So if you're watching or listening to this today, and you need to take an honest audit of your circle. And if you got gossipers, complainers, blamers, losers, if you will, right? I know that's not politically correct nowadays to say that, but it's true. Then you need to go in the mirror and look at yourself today, take the responsibility, as Chris is preaching to us today, and saying, hey, it's up to me. I got to make this change. But I also like the fact that you're willing to pay for speed. Right. You could spend 30 years trying to learn real estate, 30 years trying to learn all this, but instead you're going, you know what? I know that if I invest in this coach that actually knows what they're doing, it's going to warp speed me, if you will. It's going to collapse time frames. I'm willing to invest for speed. And it sounds like that is what's going on in your business and in your own life.
So Rob, I'm glad you caught that and you brought that up, because that's the secret sauce. And it takes a mindset of abundance to be able to do that, because we all want to think, and we're taught in society, if Rob takes this piece of pie, that's one piece of pie left for me. But in reality, that's not the case, because when you bring a team in, you do time warp the situation, and you're able to expedite that. And I like to say you're cheating time. You're able to steal time. This is the only time that it's ethical to steal, is when you can leverage someone else's experience to get you to the finish line quicker.
That's good.
And so what I do is I seek out people that have the skill sets that I don't have yet, and I try to learn from them, but not only learn from them, I want to partner with them. So for instance, I'm not that great at paid ad marketing. So I've never studied into that. So I will hire that out. SEO marketing, website building, I'm going to hire that out. That's an extension of my team. They may not be a W-2 employee, but they're still a part of my team. Sure. And when you begin to get this abundance mindset, and you begin to get around these big thinkers and these 7, 8, 9-figure earners and business owners, they don't think of what I can do. And I'm going to drop this nugget for everybody listening. don't set your goals high enough so that you think if I do double the work, I'll hit it. Set it so high that there is absolutely no way you by yourself will be able to achieve it. At that point, you will get creative and ingenuity will begin to come out, and resourcefulness will make you find what you have to be able to achieve those goals. That's why I never I'm not going to say I never complain. I try to never complain when I get pushed back in a corner, because at that point, that's when the genius comes out. Because when it's easy, why do you have to get resourceful? Why do you have to make those brain paths start to go through and find, new resources to make it happen? But when you're stuck back in the corner, there's no way out. So you got to figure out, how do I create this road? You got to turn into a MacGyver for the old school folks that understand that series. And that's what I love. And that's what's so great about when you do get in those tough times, the MacGyver will come out in you. And then that's when you really start to make money, because you're a problem solver. And if you can solve someone else's problem, you'll get paid. That's just the after effect of getting paid. It's all about solving problems. And when you get around these big money earners, these entrepreneurs that are extremely successful financially, you will realize that they focus on bringing value, not making money, because they understand money follows value.
Sure. No, I definitely love, what you're saying there. And once again, I'm just going to pause for a minute. And whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify or Apple or Google Play, wherever, I want you to realize something, what Chris is preaching to us. And I interpret a lot of things through the lens of a preacher, because I'm a former preacher and in ministry, but he's stepping on our toes a little bit today in a good way, right? He's pushing us, he's challenging us, because many of you think it's a lack of resources, but rather it's a lack of your resourcefulness.
Absolutely.
This is what Chris is talking about. An abundance mindset realizes there's an abundance of resources out there, but are you willing to take the action enough to be creative to find those resources? Are you willing to put yourself in those rooms? Are you willing to read those books? Are you willing to watch those YouTube videos, listen to those podcasts that could spark that creativity in you, be a catalyst for you to find? Because I have found, Chris, and this is what you're preaching, is that when I really want to be resourceful, it's amazing to me. I go, how come I didn't see all these resources, in the first place? And a lot of times it's because we tend to settle. Yeah. We tend to get complacent. We tend to follow the status quo, and it takes something to really break out of that. Let me ask you this, because you keep bringing up conferences, right? And I'm a big conference guy. To me, it's like going to church, if you will, if I can put it in that lens, getting around like-minded people, going in the same direction. And let me ask you something. What is the biggest breakthrough, or one of the biggest breakthroughs, if you're able to share with us, that you've had at a conference, whether it's mindset, financial, or whatever the case may be?
I would say the biggest breakthrough that I've had is keep it super simple. It's really that, it's that simple. So what I do is, when I go to these conferences, the ones that affect me the most are the ones that are dumbed down to third grade level. Yeah. When they sit there and say, here's A, B, C, D, don't overcomplicate it. Yeah. So like getting into real estate, when I went to learn about real estate, he said, here's how you find the value of it. Here's where how you're going to put your discount. This is the amount of discount. And then here's how you find your expenses on rehab. And he got us to where your purchase price should be. He didn't say, here's the documentation that's going to go about it. Here's what the attorneys are going to be looking for, because you got experts. That's an extension of your team. And when I understood that I just need team members to help me go forward, and the only thing holding me back is me taking action, the fear of failure, because I don't understand what is to come because I haven't walked it yet, then that allowed me to start moving. So if I can simplify something in my life to where I will take action, then at that point, I'm going to start seeing results. Because reality is, if you think about it, and I know I'm relating a bunch of this towards business, but it's like this in every other aspect of your life. Sure. But like in business, the worst that can happen is you go bankrupt. Yeah. There's a reset. There is a floor. The most that can happen, though, there is not a ceiling.
Yeah.
So why would you not risk the risk of failure after getting some proper education, someone that's already walked it, someone that helped guide you that you can call and make sure you're just not going to have something blow up in your face? Why would you not take the risk for an opportunity of infinite return over a failure that's got a floor that you can reset on? And that's what we forget. We act like it's an endless black hole that we can never stop to fall on. But what we're doing is we're trading out an infinite return because we're fear of failure. We're fear of the unknown. And fear by itself is just a simple fact of, I don't know enough. Because if we knew enough, then we would realize the risk and we would evaluate those risks. But when we don't know enough, we allow fear to hold us back and to cripple us. And every time that I've had fear of movement, and then I got a little bit of education, I was able to push back past that. But, every conference I go to does speak about mindset. And that is the most that I invest on is mindset, because I understand the quicker and the faster and the bigger I grow, the more my social network's going to grow, the more my finances are going to grow, the more my opportunities are going to grow, the more my relationship is going to grow. These conferences, majority of that I go to, they're a 360 whole life situation. Like, they'll have their trainings, but when you're in the mastermind and you go to the conferences are about your mind, about your relationships.
Sure.
A question I hear a lot is, what do you want? What do you really want? Like, do you really sit down and think, what do I want? Because if you're saying, I want money, I want to not have to worry about money anymore, that's not narrow and detailed enough.
Sure.
How do you want your life to look? Tell me what your perfect day is going to look like.
Sure.
Is that sitting on the beach? For me, I couldn't sit on the beach. I have to be producing something, going on a beach vacation, 2, 3, 4 days max. Yeah, that's fantastic. But if I retired and sat on the beach, I would go into depression. Sure. Because I have understood at this point from self-reflection that when I'm producing, when I'm growing, when I'm helping something increase, that is when I'm the happiest. That's why I enjoyed carpet cleaning when I first got into it. I could instantly see the gratification of my efforts. I went from dirty carpet, spots on it, to this nice white carpet. So it was fulfilling to me, and it allowed me to involve my whole self into that industry and educate myself. So mindset, but just keeping it simple. We overcomplicate it, which puts more fear and keeps us from taking action. And another tip, when you listen and you start to study these people that are highly effective in business,
sure,
they read a ton of books.
Yeah.
Now, I do not crack a book open. I get it on Audible. Yeah. Because if I crack a book open at the end of the evening, I'm going to fall asleep inside that book. But I will listen to an Audible book riding down the road to work, from job to job. If I'm on an airplane going to an event, any chance that I see that I'm going to be sitting down for more than 15 minutes, I'm plugging my headphones in, listening to the book. And my book is about mindset or business or investing, one of those three. And the reason I focus so much on increasing my wealth is because I understand from scripture basis that an empty vessel has nothing to pour out. But if you are full and overflowing, you will be able to quench other people's thirst. And I want to be that angel investor. I want to be that person that says, dude, I was the one that wanted to just jerk the wheel. I just didn't have I wasn't brave enough to do it, thank God, to jerk the wheel and end my life because I was so depressed. But look at where I'm at now, and you can do it too. I didn't have a college education. I graduated high school, got out of high school, and went straight into trades, just working with my hands. A pressure washer in the back of my truck, that business failed. Car wash and detailing in that town, that business failed. Went and worked for a car dealership, and that failed as well. Went back to my dad's place of business and employment for like the 4th or 5th time, and then that failed because I just couldn't keep it up. And then finally I had breakthrough. When you hear that rags to riches, you're inspired because you're thinking, well, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's why it's so important that you have the correct influences, and you can get that from books. You can get that from podcasts. You can get that from YouTube videos. You can get that from Facebook groups. You can get that from your social media if you have the right people in your network. When I open my social media, I've got people telling about their wins because they know it inspires their group. It doesn't make them jealous, and we don't think they're bragging. I don't get political junk. I don't get religious junk. I don't get gossip junk. I don't get all of that mess that so many people say. I've got to take a break from social media. If you got to take a break from social media, it's because you got the wrong friends and you're following the wrong people. And Facebook has seen your algorithm of what you like and what you watch. And you've got to retrain Facebook of what you like and what you watch. And it boils down to, what do you let in you've already said it. You know, what you focus on grows, and the people around you, you're going to be like them. So do you want to be like the losers you're hanging out with now? Or do you truly, really want success in your life? And success doesn't mean financial only. Success means relationship. Success means spiritual. There's many different ways of having success. But the question is do you really want it? Like I complain a lot about not having the team that I need. And a while back I said, Chris, what the heck are you doing to increase your team? And I thought, well, I'm not doing that much. So what did I start to do? As I was out in the marketplace, I started paying attention. Who was an overachiever? Who was impressing me? Then I started putting money behind paid ads. I just put $1,000 on a Facebook paid ad, a hiring ad this week to try to attract new team members. And I'm super picky because I want to make sure that I build this team of top A players. I want A's and at the very least B's. The C's can see their way out and go find the other, because here's the deal. Anybody that's a C could be an A. It's just because they have a lack of respect for themselves.
Sure.
So that's my question to everybody that's listening. Where are you complaining at? And then what are you doing to change it? What actions are you putting behind that complaint? Otherwise, don't complain. There's no reason. You've put yourself there.
No, I love that. And one thing that I've really been mulling over and chewing on, and I've talked to other leaders on podcasts that have come on, is really the difference between coping and actually breakthrough or healing, if I can use that word. I think we live in a culture that programs us just to cope, whether that's through vices, substances. And listen, if you're watching or listening today, I'm not discounting anything that you've been through. I'm not saying don't take medication or whatever. But what I'm saying is that we live in a culture that's hyper-focused on coping. Mm-hmm. And when you're just coping with something, you'll never find the breakthrough or that healing, because you know this. Leadership in its most simplest form is nothing more than influence. And it's really hard to transfer to something to people if you don't even have that belief in yourself. Right? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what you would say to that coping versus breakthrough dynamic?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back. First of all, I like that you said you're not discounting, because, dude, I do believe that you can get into a state mentally or physically where you do need some Western medicine to get you out of it, to help you. But it's just a leg up. It's like setting a step ladder in front of you so that you can step up to get to that next level. It doesn't mean that you set this extension ladder of pharmaceuticals out there or whatever the case is, government, financial help, whatever. All of it was meant to be a step up, not to create a coping mechanism. And so if that is what you need, then do that. But then how do you get off of that? You set yourself to where you're taking small wins daily. If you say you're going to get up at 5 a.m., keep the promise to yourself. Change your environment so that you can keep those promises. If you are in a habit of sitting here and clicking the snooze button 15 times till it's 7 o'clock and you're supposed to wake up at 8 o'clock, move your phone across the room to where you have to get out of bed. Create a totally different environment and rack these small wins up, because it's a confidence builder. And confidence will overcome so much stuff biologically happening in your life. And focus more on taking care of yourself. Get off the junk food. Get off of the stuff that was not made to produce for you. it's another thing of enjoyment. We go and get that greasy food because it tastes good, but it does absolutely nothing for you. Now, do I eat fried chicken and cookies and stuff? I do occasionally. Woo. But I try to focus. On taking in more of what is going to produce than what is going to take away. So rack the small wins up. If you need the medicine to help you take a step up, absolutely. I do not have any condemnation towards anyone on that. But do some stuff for yourself. Don't be codependent on that. Make your bed up in the morning, do the exercise, eat well, eat some fruit first thing in the morning and some, clean cut grains. Do these wins. And if you do this over time and you stay consistent with it, I'm going to tell you this, it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something.
Sure.
And most people bail. That's 5 years of 40 hours a week. Most people bail after the third year or earlier. Yep. That's when all of the efforts are about to come to harvest at that third year. When you get into fourth and fifth year, you're starting to eat from your efforts. But we bail on it because we get tired. And it's because we've lost vision and belief because we didn't keep the correct influences around us and we got distracted. Yeah. And if we would just put the time in and be results driven, then we would keep that consistent effort because I set my goals are non-negotiables and it's like life or death to me.
Sure.
It is life or death to me to get to the gym and stay healthy. It is life or death to me to be financially free. And financially free means I can go do whatever I want, whenever I want. I will never look at how much something costs. I'm looking at how does it bring value into my life. And then I am also able to affect the people around me. These things are non-negotiables. And that's what the problem is we make it negotiable. Are we going to get up in the morning at 5 a.m.? Are we going to go to the gym and have a healthier body? Are we going to increase our skill set by taking in new information through audiobooks, books, podcasts, whatever? Stop making it a non-negotiable. As soon as it's negotiable and you don't feel good, you're going to negotiate yourself out of doing it when you know the consistency is going to bring results to your life.
Yeah. And I want to further clarify, for those that are watching or listening, what I'm ultimately saying is like what Chris is saying. It's when we rely solely on the external to change us. Right. Exactly. So if you got to take the medicine, listen, we've all been there. No hate, Absolutely. No shame, no condemnation, Absolutely. As Chris said. But are we going to put action behind that? If we need government assistance, I grew up with a single mom. We were on welfare. We had to have all kinds of assistance.
Yeah.
But are we willing to put action behind that? Or are we going to use it as a way just to be complacent? And you know this, and I'm not hating, but it's just the truth, is that a lot of people use it just to be complacent. And what Chris is teaching us today is that consistency compounds. And Absolutely. Are you willing, if I can just be brutally honest, are you willing to suck at something long enough until you become a master of it?
That's it, man.
Right.
That's it.
And I love what Dabo Sweeney, he calls it, Coach Dabo Sweeney calls it embracing the suck, right? Are we willing to embrace the suck long enough until we become good at whatever that is? Let me ask you this in regards to leadership. What is one core value that Chris lives by, that non-negotiable? Is there one that just rises to the top that you go, this is a staple in my life and it's non-negotiable and this is what I build my life upon?
Yeah. Do to others as you'd have them do to you. And I know that's very cliche, but that is the core value that I live by, because I like to be treated with respect. I like to be helped. I don't like to be coddled and babied. Going to these conferences is getting in these rooms. A lot of times you deal with imposter syndrome, especially when you're walking into a room where the players are way bigger than you.
Sure.
But what I have learned is if you will show a level of hustle, these people will respect you regardless of your pedigree, your financial status, or anything. They just want to see that you're willing to help yourself. And so anytime that I see someone that's hustling, trying to help themselves, instantly they have my respect. And that's because that's the level of respect I demand out of
Sure.
myself as well. So that's where I sit with my main core value is I want to do unto others as I would want them to do unto me, because I also feel like that is the essence of being a Christian, because it says God is love and love is God.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are showing love to someone, then you're showing God to them. You're showing salvation. I don't care if they claim Buddha, Hindu, or whatever. Dude, if you are showing love, and everybody will recognize love, no matter the denomination. And when you show that, they will connect with that. And you have instantly showed them Christ. Now, they may not recognize it as Christ. They may recognize it by a different name because of the society that they grew up in and what they were taught. But I believe personally in my spiritual walk in life that you don't necessarily have to say Christ to be saved. Sure. You have to have love, and that love is Christ. If the scripture is true, God is love and love is God, then love is our salvation right there. So I'm all about the love, man. I just want to treat people with respect because everybody deserves it. I don't care what you've done in the past. That love is your birthright. And love really does break down so many boundaries and barriers and chains on people. And most people just need you never know what one moment is going to do for someone. Sure. That one moment of acknowledging their presence in the room, that could be the one breakthrough they needed to be able to get past the struggle that they've had. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you're respecting each other when you're moving throughout the day. And I know we all make mistakes. I mean, just the other day I got upset and I responded in a manner that was a little hostile in my office. And I immediately came back and said, I'm so sorry. I should not. That was disrespectful and unprofessional. And then I was leaving. I was having to walk straight out the door. I came back in and said it again publicly because I had acted a fool publicly. We make mistakes, but sure. the goal is to make sure that you're always trying your best and you're always getting better at that, treating others the way you want to be treated.
No, and I love that because as someone who's been in ministry for over 20 years, and, even if you don't believe in Christianity the way I do, or whoever's listening or watching, I believe we become a society that's more worried about policing people than promoting people.
Absolutely.
And what I mean by that is, and this is one of my biggest concerns, Chris, that I have sometimes with churches. I'm not a church hater. I'm just being real about it because I've been behind the scenes. I've been on both sides. But a lot of times we preach too much what we're against and not enough of what we're for.
Absolutely, man.
And it's like, I get around Christians, sometimes they're just Debbie Downers, man, that are just, as my mom would say, negative Nancys, and And so I love that when you just love people unconditionally, you're just willing to serve them sacrificially with no strings attached. That I have found that really it opens up so many doors, especially in a world that's just full of hate. And it's almost like we're just programmed to be unkind, to be mean, and to police people, and to be down against people and against. So I definitely love that. So let's talk about from core value to leadership principle. What's one leadership principle that you've learned through this age of breakthrough that rises to the top, that you've learned, that you've cultivated in your own life, but that you lead others from?
I lead with value. The same way I lead in business to get paid, I lead with value with my team. So how can I help them accomplish their goals? We've got a goal board in our business, and we go over our goal board once a month. And it's there because we want to see them achieve things personally, financially, and professionally. That's the three topics. And so like when I come into my facility, and if I see that we're struggling in processes, I'm thinking, how can I bring more efficiency so that I can take load off of my current staff members? So for instance, we just opened up a spot for a facility technician because the field technicians had so many responsibilities to make sure their truck was ready to go, actually go perform the service. Now at the end of the day, they're worn out, and then they got to do a checklist and resupply. So I said, what can I bring value? How can I bring value to their life so that they have less to focus on. So I said a facility technician is going to take the responsibility of prepping the vehicle and cleaning the vehicle up. They come in fresh, hop in a vehicle ready to go out into the field and do these in-home services, perform their services, come back, drop it off. Someone else cleans it up, repackages it, and it's ready for them the next day. Leading with value is the ultimate leadership trait, I believe, that everyone should have, because at that point, you will have loyal followers and not followers out of fear. If you lead out of a dictatorship mentality of this is what you're going to do for me because I demand it, you will never have anybody standing there loyal. As soon as they get the best opportunity, another opportunity, they're leaving you. But I have literally had people say, hey, I got a phone call from so-and-so. They were going to offer me more pay, but I told them that I was happy where I was at. It's because we've built a culture where we lead with value instead of we try to take first. And the law of reciprocity, when you give first, it's going to come back to you no matter what. And that's what's happened in my life. I don't have to go out in the field and sweat it up and, do all of those type of physical labors anymore. I make more money now, not even doing those, but it's because I led with value. I make sure my team has the best equipment, the best uniforms, the best training, the best culture. We do team building days, all of that kind of stuff. Lead with value, man. That is the leadership quality that you should be focusing on if you want to be an excellent leader.
No, I love that. And I ask everybody that comes on the podcast this as we get ready to wrap up here is, what is one word you would use to describe Chris?
Ambitious.
So tell me how being ambitious has contributed to the success that you had today.
I'm not willing to quit. I just keep going. I keep going. And the reason I keep going is because I know what it's like where I came from. And that is not a life worth living. So it's either in my life or keep going. And that's me being real raw about it.
Yeah.
But I know where I came from. And I know the Chris today will not satisfy the Chris tomorrow, because the more I self-improve, self-develop, the more aware I get of what is available to me, the more disappointed I will be if I stay where I'm at. I want to be 1% better every single day.
Yeah. No, I love that. I just got to pause there for a minute, because I think that's a word for someone today. Is you're living in 2022, but you're trying to be the 2016 version of yourself.
Yeah.
That's what Chris is saying. I can't even live off the 2020 version of Rob anymore. I have to constantly be growing this capacity, this character, because the character, you got to have the character. You got to have the capacity to support what I call a God-sized dream. I don't want just a natural dream. I want just this big, audacious dream, right? And so I definitely love that. Let me ask you this too, kind of a part B to that. From loser Chris, if I can use your words.
Absolutely.
Right, to serial entrepreneur, huge investor. I mean, just all these 7-figure cleaning restoration business. I know there's multiple breakthroughs, but give me one, just for the sake of time, give me one that you had to have to go from loser Chris to this Chris over here that we're talking to today.
I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
Influence, positive influence, and branding yourself. Positive influence and branding yourself. I got a mindset shift from the positive influence, and I got eyeballs, which gave me opportunity because I branded myself for free on social media because I was willing to tell my story and risk judgment.
And you think that's one of the big things that keeps people back is the judgment? I know we talked a little bit about that earlier, but it's just the fear of people thinking, well, what if my story's not sexy enough? Or what if my story's not this enough? And they're letting just the excuses and the just becauses or the just or the buts get in the way.
Here's what I need to tell these people that have that thought. What if you saved one person from suicide because you told your story, no matter how big or how small you think it is? You never know who's listening, who's watching, and who needed that inspiration of this. Even if you haven't had breakthrough yet, even if it's a daily grind and you sit there and simply say, it was so hard to get out of bed, but I'm still moving because I hope for a better tomorrow. That might be just enough inspiration for someone else to not grab the gun and pull the trigger, or to whatever. And I've heard highly successful people talk about trying to commit suicide or almost. Sure. You don't realize how many people are lacking inspiration, and you holding your story back is extremely selfish. It has nothing to do about the opportunity it's even going to bring to you. It's the most selfish thing that you could do, because you never know what life you're going to change when they get the opportunity to hear your story.
Well, and to piggyback off that, Chris, and I 150% agree. For me, 3 years ago, I met this fellow pastor friend, 7-figure entrepreneur. We're sitting down having lunch, and he begins to tell me this story. And if you want to say he prophetically spoke into my life, if I can use some Christianese there for a second, that's what happened. And that piece of advice snapped me out of that JOB mentality that I had fallen into, right? That broke minister mentality that I had fallen into. So I 150% agree. And if you're listening or watching this today, you have a unique skill set, a unique voice. You were created uniquely. And there's a message inside of you that someone, even if it's just one person in this world, needs to hear. And I 150% agree with what Chris is saying. And as we close shop today, Chris, where can we find you? I know you have the Facebook group. Can you talk about that and tell us wherever else we can find you online?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. It's Chris Garrison, or it's Chris Garrison 84. And then I've also got the Facebook group, which is Bigger Vision. We talk about wealth creation, and it's real heavy on mindset, again, because you got to 20x yourself to 10x your financial situation. And then I've got another group, Facebook group, that I've just started, partnered up with Kevin Marin, very successful entrepreneur. And we talk about everything business, how to start it up, how to scale it, how to operate it, how to sell it, how to buy an existing business for cash flow. And those are pretty much the places that you can find me. Message me, be more than happy to connect. I just want to see people prosper. I like to see people take any advice that I give and really run with it. And it just it's probably the best feeling that I could ever have is when I see a piece of advice that I was able to give and someone just blow up with it.
Sure. And we'll put all the links to that in the description when this video drops in a few weeks. Anything just as we close today, it's just bubbling over in your spirit, if you will, just something that you go, because I have people from the insurance industry that watch this because that's the industry I'm in. But we got people and entrepreneurs, people that have side hustles, real estate agents, you name it, watch this or listen to this. Is there something you go, I got to share this before we close today?
Yeah, man. If you want change something in your life. I mean, you truly do. As soon as you take responsibility for everything in your life and you stop letting excuses run it, you are an unstoppable force. So just remember, if you've got an excuse, if you've got some place that you don't like, create some action to cause some change, because it is that simple. It's really that simple. And we try to make it way too big and something that we can't reach, but you have complete control. I do not care what your circumstances are. If you will take full responsibility of where you're at, you will start taking actions to get you to where you want to be.
No, and listen, as we close today, I always like to close this way, and that is to remind you once again why we do this. Sometimes life can sucker punch you. Sometimes the terminology I use, take fresh wind out of your sails. But I know that you cannot listen to what Chris has been preaching today, so to speak, and not put fresh wind in your sails. Don't give up. Invest in yourself. Be consistent. Own it. Just own your crap. Just own it. That's what Chris is saying. We got to own it. We got to look in the mirror and stinking own it, because the more that we're blaming, the more that we're actually blocking that breakthrough in our lives. And I just want to encourage all of you to please like, comment, subscribe below, turn on the notifications. That way you are notified when we have leaders like Chris on the podcast. And I'll close by saying just God bless you guys. Keep living on purpose, and we'll talk to you soon.